Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Accuracy in America, brought to you by Accuracy in Academia. I'm your host, Don Irvine, joined by my co-host, Brian McNichol.
Hello, deplorables, dregs, despicables, chumps, Neanderthals, semi-fascists, maggots, and of course those dog-faced pony soldiers.
That's right. All right. Well, I was thinking about the weather because I like to talk about the weather. Yesterday was a great day, and I thought maybe we finally have hit the real spring. Not 30 degrees at night. And
Yeah, it was nice outside last night. Yeah, I was outside for a little bit. It was good.
Yeah, I was very happy to walk out of the house at like 4:40 a.m. and I didn't wear a jacket and I didn't have my jogging pants or whatever to go to the gym. It's like this is how it's supposed to be.
There you go. Another day in paradise. It's beautiful today too. It's going to be.
Yeah, looks a little. It's a little gray over here, but still. I don't know, I think it's still
was earlier, but now I'm looking out there now. It's bright and sunny. It's like the clouds are moving off. So
maybe I have another eclipse coming.
Could be.
Does that mean you get to hit the links?
It could be later today. I might get to hit it. I bet it's been hard for me to play because. So I was out there Easter Sunday, right? First of all, I had the greatest wife in the world. She lets you play golf on Easter Sunday. There was like 10 people on the golf course. I was probably the only one who was married, I played the first 8 holes. I have had 2 birdies, which is, that's good for me. And I was like 1 over par. I was really blasting the ball, right? So I come to the 9th hole and I get up there and I'm like, man, this swing really feels good, I rear back and I'm like, man, I've never been in better position over a golf ball. I can just come through as hard as I want and just blast it, right? So I did. And the golf club blew up. The golf club would the driver, right? It just like just flying every which way. And I'm like, wow. And the ball went pretty far, right? It was like a drive, And but like the last half of that swing, I'm just swinging the stick, right? There's no club on the end of it. So pulled groin, like ever since Easter, I've been walking around like I'm 80, But I'm trying to like come back, Today may be the day to try it after work.
You'll make it back. You mean like Tiger's been making it back, right?
That's right. He's supposed to be in the Masters. So
yeah. See if he can make the cut. I mean, it's I mean, Tiger's had a lot of travails, the personal issues, the injuries and all these things. A lot of these things that pile up as you get older, and as a golfer, there are injuries that you're more prone to as you age, and everything like that. But he's still out there giving it a go, and we'll see. I don't know. I mean, the Masters is, it's just such a classic event for golf.
It is. I can hardly wait. Starts tomorrow.
Every time I see this, I keep thinking it's like, I visited Augusta how many decades ago because there was a Republican state convention in that city, and I'm thinking like, I was pretty close to that club.
Yeah. We went there, and like if you don't have a way to get in, right? You can kind of walk up to the fence and look, right? And so we've done that. I've been there and like seen what it looks like, seen that drive that they make, and so forth. But yeah, there's also the thing about Masters. If you're a sports watching fan, right? Which we both are. So we just got done with the national championship basketball games, sort of puts an end point on winter, right? And then the Masters is sort of like spring, the official opening of spring, right? And it's shaping up like springish weather, and it sort of like gets us into the spring and summer, the warm season. So I always look forward to it on the calendar.
Yeah, I would tell you, I was just since we're in the golf side now, anyway. I was listening to a ESPN daily podcast with Clinton Yates has taken over for Pablo Torres, and he interviewed this caddy, Michael Collins, I guess it was. And they were talking about the Masters, but also Live Golf and John Rahm and all this stuff. And it was funny in a sense because, I mean, talking about how the importance of caddies and how many times you get fired, and how difficult it is to win if you're going to a tournament with a caddy for the first time who really doesn't know you. But he was pointing out about live, LIV is actually is Roman numeral, is 54, which they play 54 holes.
Right.
But what this caddy said in the podcast, and Yates corrected him right away. He says it's for the Greek numerals, number 54. And yeah, it was kind of, I thought they handled it pretty well, because at the end of the podcast, he's just like, it's like, yeah, okay, so I failed history, but you won't let that go, right? And I was like, yeah, I don't know. I thought I don't know if I've ever heard anybody look at Roman numerals and associate them with Greek. And this caddy was trying to brush it off at that time. He says, basically the same thing.
I love it. I mean, it's all that stuff was a long time ago.
Yeah.
A priest, he puts a dad joke, not a dad joke in the bulletin every week, right? So one day his dad joke was, I was in a cafe in Rome. I held up two fingers for coffees. They brought me 5. The V is the 5.
I like that.
That's why they call them dad jokes.
Yeah, I do like that, though. That's good. Oh, here we got a weather report.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Shreveport, they've had some serious rain down.
I think we're due for. I think we're going to get a little rainy though, aren't we? This next few days.
Yeah, so later today and tomorrow. So
yeah,
it's coming.
Yeah, basically, just as we're drying out, we're preparing for more rain. So yeah. I knew I needed to cut the grass. And I thought, all right, what's my window here? And I'm like, look, and I was like, better cut it today. Because it looks like there's a chance of rain tomorrow. It's like, so, I did beat it. And it was such a, like I said, it was such a gorgeous day and everything. That was, it was actually darn hot, walking around in the sunshine at 1 o'clock in the afternoon or whatever it was I was doing, or 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
So, but it was nice. It was nice to see and nice to have that. So we still have this whole thing in Israel going on there, and a lot of jawboning, a lot of back and forth. The left-wing Democrats seem to be digging in their heels that that Israel are the bad guys in this because of all the innocent civilians that have been killed in Gaza and the lack of humanitarian effort on the part of Israel, that kind of thing. And that we need this ceasefire and whatnot. But it was, I don't know if you saw that report from, Chris Cuomo, I guess, did some kind of editorial on News Nation or whatever. And he just ripped the left really for this, just reminding people, it's like Hamas is evil. I mean,
right.
And that this is, they have our people, they have Israel's people, and that, you need to get those people back. And now there's growing kind of anti-Netanyahu sentiment in Israel because they want these hostages back sooner. But this is a tough slog. I mean, this is hard. I mean, if I think if Israel knew exactly where these people are and how to get to them, I think they'd get to the hostages a lot quicker, because I really think the IDF is one of the best defense forces in the world. And they are kind of that taking up prisoners. They will go in, they'll risk some lives to go in and save lives. And I wouldn't monkey around with them. But boy, it's really tragic to see the Democrats, kind of back off on us. And I think we talked about this a little bit last week. It may not hurt them too much in some of the elections here in November, but in some areas, you may get some people who will peel off, and decide that if they don't vote Republican, which they might find an anathema because they voted Democrat all life, they just might not vote at all, or they'll skip some races or something like that, and create another problem for the Democrats.
Well, a few things Israel's the good guys here, right? They're the ones who got attacked. They have also been relentlessly surgical about what they've done, right? They've told the people where they're going to attack so that you can leave and you won't get hurt. And they have coordinated the aid delivery. They've tried to get as much aid in there as they could. It's being stolen or diverted and sold to the people instead of given to them. The thing I guess you heard last week, they shot an aid corps convoy struck by accident, right? And the 6 or 7 World Central Kitchen guys who were there to do humanitarian stuff were killed, right? So, but the whole story of that is, Hamas truck goes into the tunnel, truck with these guys comes out of the tunnel, right? IDF thinks they're looking at the same truck, right? They don't really know. They made a mistake, right? But, the mistakes happen in war. I was like, I'll never forget. I tell my son about this. He's thinking about joining the military. And I'm like, okay, here's the thing about the military. In the Iraq War, one point we were close to taking over Baghdad. We had 8 tanks parked on the bank of the Euphrates River. They're right outside of Baghdad. And they were on, what are the Nile and the Euphrates famous for every year? Flooding, right? They come out of the banks every year. So the ground near them is soft because it's been flooded every year. Those tanks slid off into the river. There was like 55 people. There were the people manning those tanks died, right? Because the tanks were all in there. They had no notice. All of a sudden, they're in the bottom of the river, right? So, those kind of things. It's horrible, but like America now knows, don't park your tanks by the Euphrates River because it won't work, right? But someone had to die. A bunch of people had to die to teach us that, unfortunately. So, that kind of stuff happens in war, and it's terrible. But Israel is trying to do the job of taking out Hamas. They are not attacking aid workers. They're trying to get the aid in to Gaza. They're not unsympathetic to the plight of the people on the other side, but the people on the other side are not sympathetic to them. Right? Almost every single person in the Hamas-controlled territories, Gaza and the West Bank, favored what happened on October 7th. They celebrated it. They thought it was terrific. They struck a blow for whatever it is they're striking a blow for. And, they didn't care about what it did to the families and all the people who were killed and all the people who were kidnapped and tortured. And now they're saying they don't have any hostages. The hostages are all dead, right? We would love to trade you hostages for peace, but we have nothing to trade. So, if that's the case, then, I say you got to finish the job. I think that, Israel, it's a public relations hit right now. Okay, I got that. But, you have a problem that's been going on for decades here. And the problem moved itself into a position where it can be solved, right? Now it's like, as a result of these attacks, you have some imprimatur to go in there and deal with this. Attacks happen every day. They've happened every day except, I think, 2 days since October 7th. Palestinians have attacked Israel every day except 2 since October 7th. So it's not like that was their one-off deal and they're still being punished for that same thing. They're still attacking, right? Israel is still repelling attacks. I don't think people understand that. So, now you're saying Israel should leave them alone, have a ceasefire. They don't have a ceasefire. They don't want a ceasefire, right? This is stuff being done to Israel that's not being visited on the other side. I think that, I've said all along, till the rubble bounces, you have a chance to solve this problem right now, one fell swoop. Take your 3 more months of PR hits and get it done. Finish Hamas once and for all.
Yeah, I think that the slogan should be something along like "finish the job," right?
Right.
And
serve notice to everybody else who has little thoughts in their heads about doing this kind of stuff. We will wipe you out down to the last man. No, there are no wars without civilian casualty.
Yeah, there's always going to be.
They've done better than anyone else ever at removing civilian casualties.
Yeah. So a few things here too. One is I thought I heard a report that Biden said told the press that that on the World Central Kitchen thing that there wasn't a convoy. But I think most people consider that a convoy. And you even called it a convoy. Now I would have considered it a convoy, but it wasn't a large convoy. But the thing is that they had vehicle after vehicle after vehicle. They were following each other. They were going along a set path. and everything like this. To me, that's a convoy. They were not random vehicles following each other. This was a group of vehicles going on a specific route, to do that. So I think he erred badly there. Another thing too that bothers me about some of this is just that these recent calls for to get Netanyahu out and call for a new election. It's
right.
Like,
what are we doing? No, he's the guy, and we don't. Why are we choosing the leader of Israel?
Yeah, well, look,
you think about the Democrats. They do this all the time. They don't like the call. They want to change the ref, right? Like they want to change the judge in Florida. They want to change, what's going on in Israel. It's like you anything that doesn't go their way, we just get another person in there who will do what we want done. That's ridiculous. It's a travesty of justice.
Yeah, well, you're in a war. The last thing you need to have in the middle of something like this is to call for a new election, right? You've got a guy who's in there. He's built his coalition, and it took him a while to get there. They had multiple elections before Netanyahu was able to actually cobble together enough support to do this. The country, calling for a new election at this time would just be utter chaos. Hamas, they would love it. They would
leave the country completely vulnerable.
Yeah, they would love it.
At a time when you have the Arab states are now looking around at this and they're going, Israel didn't attack them; they attacked Israel. We need to quiet this down.
Yeah, why? Because you throw this into. The chances are that another election would be like a lot of the other ones. It would be very hard for any one person to really get the majority of the vote. They would have to spend all this time. In the meantime, the nation would be somewhat rudderless at critical moments. And it makes absolutely no sense. And yet even our people, our legislators, they're willing to throw that out there and say that. This comment is right on too.
Yeah, that's right too. And the other thing is you're not getting what you want out of that anyway, right? It's not gonna end like that. It's like, why are we meddling in the affairs of our ally? Remember when they were our ally?
Yeah, no, it's just none of this really makes any sense, whatsoever. And so
it doesn't. It does if you think about the Biden administration is still stuck on the two-state solution. Right, that is their thing. Until we get an independent state for the Palestinians, this is not going to end. Yeah, it will if you let Israel end it now. Right, that's the play to make it end is to let Israel now. There's not going to be a two-state solution. Right, that never was workable. The other side, Hamas, that's not what they want. Right, they want one state that does not include any Jews. Make no mistake, they're not for a two-state solution. It's just this whimsical thing that the American left keeps trying to graft onto the situation.
Yeah, they keep putting all this kind of pressure on. It's like, don't supply them with weapons and materiel and stuff like that. Don't give them any money. All of these things to try to choke them off a little bit, but it's just kind of ludicrous in this situation.
That's right.
And I think you're on this. Israel will they continue to take the PR hit. I think they just really are going to have to, they're going to have to say, look, we don't really, we don't really care what the rest of the world thinks. We have to go in there and do this, and we have to go in there and end this because this is just not situation now. It's not satisfactory, and so do it because I think the PR type of thing will continue to just drag them down a little bit, kind of be in this sense. It's John mentioned Schumer. You've got the Senate Majority Leader, a guy who should be on Israel's side, but now he's caving in too. And so you see leading Democrats cave in on this, and you're like, what are they thinking? It's like, have they totally lost the vision in terms of the idea of what the heck is going on over there? And they actually want to trust Hamas. They would actually support a two-state solution when what the result would be if they even tried going down that road. It's just really ludicrous to see that. So we just had a report this morning for CPI and the core inflation. So this is not going well. I mean, this is why you're not hearing about Bidenomics too much lately here, because these last reports show that inflation is not decelerating,
It's going back up.
like they
Yeah.
hoped it would. And once again, this is all that language that they like to use. Is like, inflation is here. Our prices are going up. It's just that for a little while there, that we had a period of time when the increases were slowing down, but the increases were still there. And but the way the media reports it, the way the administration was reporting, it's like, hey, hail Biden, hail administration, we've solved inflation. It's going away. It's only down to 3.5% or whatever. We're gonna hit all these wonderful targets, and you're doing fine, despite the fact that the cost of most things that we buy today are way up in the last 3 or 4 years. So
right, if you get the cause and effect of this right, okay, energy is going back up, and you're going to get the summer blends that always adds 4, 5, 10 cents to the gallon to the price, right? So once energy goes up, like all the other stuff, all the rest of the economy has to contract, because every energy costs go through everything we do. Everything you buy has energy cost attached to it. So the energy costs are going back up. The prices at the pump are going back up. The prices at the grocery store are going back up. And it's not going to get better before election day. It's not, it's going to be a steady drip until election day. It's not going to, there's no economic revitalization coming, because the stuff it would take to really make that happen, they're unwilling to do.
Yeah, and it's taken some of the air out of the stock market. The market had run up a lot on the expectation that interest rates, the Fed would actually cut interest rates several times this year. But every time we get one of these reports, it pushes that down the road. So the March increase, decrease didn't happen. Looks like the June decrease is off the table. So now that's going to get. So now we're going to get pushed later into the summer to the fall. I mean, there were some pretty wildly optimistic, pundits or whatever you want to call them, that was calling for 6 or 7 rate cuts they were expecting this year. Now they're down to 2 or 3 at best. So it's the stock market is, I never like it when administrations try to claim credit for stocks going up or whatever, because really stocks are they're looking down the road. They're looking at the future, and it's kind of a separate entity. And there's really, you really can't predict, diddly squat about the market. There's some sectors, tech takes off and other sectors lag. Tech falls and then the other sectors go up. And so there's, you really can't tell. The average Joe really can't predict which way that's going to go. And it's, it's based on earnings and earning expectations and stuff like that. I mean, AI has kind of been the big driver of a lot of things. So you have that.
Also, the other thing about the stock market is it really doesn't represent much of the economy anymore.
Right.
It's like a third of what it was 20 years ago.
Yeah, and the way the indexes are derived, whether or not it's the S&P 500, which is a broad index, or the Dow, which is 30, the formulas in there and the stocks in there. A lot of them are weighted based on the price of the stock and things like that. So it's not like you have equally weighted things, so there's distortions that occur within the index that give certain companies, when Apple and Facebook and, Amazon, Netflix, all these companies were going crazy, as their prices rose, they even, being part of the index, they drove the market higher in the index, but that didn't necessarily say that the broad market was going in the same direction. You could still have lots of stocks going completely the opposite, but because of the way the index is derived, it creates that. So if the index is broader, the Russell 1000 or 2000, you get a little bit better of a picture of that, but still there's always going to be some kind of distortion based on the way the index is calculated. And so it's not a good barometer of the economy, and it certainly has, when
less than it used to be.
I mean, when presidents are elected, sometimes the market reacts initially, but it usually fades off within 2 days. Maybe it pops up because, oh, we want, this is going to be the pro-business president, and then a couple of days later goes back to where it was before, and the market goes on doing its thing, irrespective of who the president is. So, and I guess the market probably prefers to have a Congress that really doesn't do much. It doesn't affect tax policy and a lot of other things, that doesn't mess with raising taxes and stuff like that. Things that they don't have to worry about, so they can go along and make their predictions based on their models, not having Congress all of a sudden say, oh, by the way, we're going to increase taxes on the rich and corporations and all this stuff, which is what this administration continues to do, right? They continue to ratchet up the tax because the rich don't pay enough taxes.
47% pay none, but the problem is the rich.
Yeah, well, I mean,
I think that's another, like we talk about this from time to time. Tax policy, you need everyone pitching in, right? And also, like, quit withholding it out of the paychecks. Like, make people write a check, because if you had to write a check every month for $900 to the federal government, to pay your tax bill or whatever, people would start looking at the budget saying, wow, what can we do without here to get me below $900, right? Because now we're disconnected from it. And people, they pay the taxes through the withholding, and then they file their taxes and they get a refund, and they're like, woo, they give me money back, right? It was your money. They held your money for a year, and then you didn't pay, you didn't have that much tax liability, so they gave you back what was your money.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know really what the ideal situation is, because part of me says that, yeah, make people write the check for their for their taxes every month or whatever, so they can kind of get it actually sinks into them. The other part of me says too that I just don't see millions of Americans doing that. I could see that a lot of them just trying to skip out and tell the IRS, come and get me.
Well, I mean, we'd be part of what happened to this, right? There would be, your compliance would go down. It's not going to, now it's, it's 100% of everybody who gets a payroll check because your company takes care of it, right? So you wouldn't have 100. But, the tax penalties are, most people are going to pay their taxes anyway. And you can figure out, it's pretty easy to figure out who didn't at that point, And the other thing is like, if you set it up, most people are going to set it up to where, it's auto pay. You take out of my account each month, whatever it is, right? But they still see it's 900 when it could be 700, when it could be 500, right? And but you need to feel that wound. You need to feel that pain.
So maybe what it is that because we're so much into electronic means of having things done, direct deposit of your paycheck. So maybe a two-pronged thing is probably, it might drive up some of the costs for the employers to do this, and it would require recalibration of payroll systems in a sense. But basically, you send every 2 weeks or whatever the paycheck is, you give everybody their full paycheck in one transmission, and then the second transmission is that you're withdrawing all their taxes. So when they look at their bank statement, when they're online, they're like, okay, I see the money going in and I see the money going out, and if they're paying attention, they're like, whoa, wait a minute, I'm paying that much in taxes.
That's a lot of money,
right? I mean,
what are they spending all my money on?
Right.
Right. And then it's because there's two things that happen there. One is just the basic look at your bank account and what is and what could be. Right. But the other thing is, okay, the power that goes with that, and the arrogance of saying, we know what's best for you. And so we'll just spend your money on these, things that we think are cool, right. I mean, it's the whole like calculation of what is important enough to spend taxpayers' money on changes. Right. Then we start saying, okay, what do we really all agree tax money should be spent on? It's like, half the EPA's budget is grants to study global warming. Do you think the country wants half the EPA's budget spent on grants for global warming, to study global warming? Right. I mean, the people on the other side say, hey, 93% of the scientists say it already. Why are we still spending on research for something that we all know? Right. And then the other side is like, you're spending them to keep, since they get the money from the government, they put out the findings that the government wants to see, right? The government's buying the science. So, all of that, then we start saying, okay, how much what is it you guys are studying that we have to study that we don't know that's ruining our lives, right? Because then we get into like how much of this do we absolutely have to do? And right now, there's no absolutely have to do. That conversation never happens in Washington, right? Because there's more than enough money to do whatever they want to do, and half the people in the country don't pay a penny for it. So that it can't go on like that.
Yeah, it's like my taxes were completed this week by my accountant and everything like that, and I was like, this is where I'm like, I hate when this happens, because it happens just way too often where I get a refund from the feds and pay the state, or pay the feds and get a refund from the state. It's rarely do I get a refund from both or whatever. Things like that. The way the tax policy is, it's so different between the feds and the state. The state has, Maryland is a fairly high tax state, and so different things wind up counting in there, and so you wind up like, okay, well, that looks good. I'm gonna get this refund from the feds, and then you do your state side, and you're like, but it was the same income more or less. But then you're like, oh, wait a minute, well, they're not giving as much on certain deductions or something like that, so therefore more of the money is taxable, and therefore you're probably going to owe, and stuff like that. I wish there was a better way to handle that, but maybe someday, probably not in my lifetime based on how old I am, that maybe that we'll get some kind of simplification of tax policy so that it doesn't just drive you crazy. There's tons of accountants or tons of tax programs out there, things that keep people busy. The whole industry is built around filing taxes, and it seems to be extremely unnecessary that we need to have all of that going on there. If we had just done that, as I said, look, how much money do we waste? Way too much money,
right? And when you get people to looking at that, if you actually knew how much came out of your check that was wasted, right, then you'd get interested in looking for waste,
right? And the Republicans are not, completely innocent on this either.
And call them out too.
Yeah,
what do we need, and what do we pretty much all agree that we need, right? We agree, whole country agrees pretty much, we need a postal service, right? Whatever we got to pay, it's not a whole lot, but we need a postal service. We need to be able to get the stuff moved around. We have private sector now. You could say, okay, why can't FedEx be our postal service? And they do first class delivery and get the things the postal service has a monopoly on. Break that up and let the private people do it. Okay, we're never going to look at that solution, and maybe that's not the best solution. Maybe it's best to keep it like it is. There's a lot of unprofitable routes, right? When you start talking about, who's going to do package delivery and daily mail delivery in Wyoming, right? That's tons of miles you're driving in terrible conditions sometimes, to take very few people their mail, But so we have this network set up, and the network's one of the great, strategic assets the country has. Is we have a way to get stuff delivered to every doorstep in America, tomorrow if we have to. So, but that's just an example. Okay, we all agree we need that. Do we all agree that we need, the department, all the stuff in the Department of Homeland Security, a lot of which is, them spying on us and political, machinations going on. There's a lot of that could just be cut out, right? I would argue we don't even need a Department of Homeland Security. I think it should be folded in other stuff like it was before. But, we can start having those conversations about what really is the government doing and what does it cost and how much do we need it. If there's the, the pressure from people saying, my gosh, look what's happening to my paycheck.
Yeah.
It's happening now, but they don't know because it's the way it's handled, right? The way the money is collected.
Right. And people need to have, politicians, they need to have the political will to do this, even if it's at the risk of their own job. Go ahead and stand up and actually try to make a difference and do something rather than get along and keep doing the thing and just keep adding 3% to this budget or that budget so that the baseline continues to grow. And we just like, we're just keep going into this deep black
just
hole.
trudging toward Gomorrah,
Yeah, I was going to say that, but I withheld. Nice shot. We definitely have been doing this show long enough.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's another one, that you lose control of that money just because of the product you chose to buy with it. And that's a good product. That's a product we actually want people to buy, right? As a house.
Yeah. I mean, John's bringing up an interesting point though, too, because part of that, there's actually a big dilemma now, though. I mean, there was a time a few years ago before mortgage rates skyrocketed, before the pandemic, and everything like that, where, the empty nesters, could and did sell their larger homes and downsized and bought smaller homes, and then bank the difference and stuff like that. But that is almost impossible these days to do that. You can sell your home, but then you're going to have to spend almost as much money to buy a smaller home elsewhere in most parts of the country, unless you want to get way out in the boonies. And to me, I mean, if you like that, that's fine. But I'm
The older you get, the kind of closer you need to be to.
Yeah, right. So my thing is that I want to be within a reasonable distance of hospital and doctor services, medical services. Also, certain shopping kind of thing like this. I like having things within a very short radius. Where I live now is very convenient to a lot of those types of things. But I mean, even airports, transportation, hospitals, doctors, the shopping, Costco, Sam's, all that kind of stuff. It's all here. I can go 15 minutes in any direction and have a hospital, and I can have a Costco, I can have a fire station, those kinds of things. You want that, you want to be able to have that. I mean, if you're living 2 hours away from where the nearest ambulance is, and you're 70 years old, that's a high risk situation then.
Yeah.
You may love your woodsy lot, but you get a heart attack, you're probably dead.
Yeah.
That type of thing. So it's really hard, with a lot of these kinds of things, is the way it's now set up. Everything has just gone up, and there are people who want to buy those homes that the empty nesters would have sold, but the empty nesters aren't going anywhere. So there's a lot of people who are kind of stuck. Everybody's kind of stuck in position, and we don't get the mobility either that we used to have, where people would buy and sell. There's a lot of just so many different things going on with all of that.
Right.
But yeah, we are kind of heading towards that whole Gomorrah thing. So I'm glad you said that first, and I'm glad I bit my tongue on that one. All right, so we had this total eclipse yesterday. Now, look, we talked about this last week. I wasn't a big eclipse guy or anything like this, and I was actually sitting and not even thinking about it. And I'm sitting in my living room, and I was catching up reading some newspaper stuff, and I'm like, wait a minute, why is it getting darker outside?
Yeah, it did make it weirdly dark.
It got noticeably darker. My wife's like, hey, it's getting darker.
But here's the thing. So someone pointed out to me. So what do we have here? Like 89%,
right?
Totality or something. So it was still fully daylight, right? I mean, even at the darkest moments of it, the height of the eclipse, and we were looking at 11% of the sun. So 11% of the sun is enough to have day. Does it keep everything bright? So how awesome is the sun, right? You know what I mean? So it's pretty impressive. Right? And yeah, so we went outside, and I had my little paper plates, right? Because I didn't buy the glasses. And I'm sitting there with and my neighbor, he sees me, and he's like, we bought the glasses. Would you like to borrow our glasses? So I look at that, it's great. He goes, yeah, it's better than your plates. I'm like, okay, I have that coming. But I did get to see it. I right about the peak of it too. So he let me use his glasses for a little bit. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it is something. I mean, there won't be another one here in the U.S. for another 20 years. If you go to Spain in 2 years, and there you can go see it there. But But I mean, it was interesting to
I'll
watch.
wait till it comes to my neighborhood.
Yeah.
The
Well, I
tour
mean,
hits me again.
well, I mean, one of our mutual friends. I mean, Megan Lott, right? I mean,
Uh-huh.
she and her boyfriend of what 5+ years, they traveled to Texas to go see it,
Oh,
and
wow.
I think that's great. I mean, if if you want to go and do it, go ahead and do it. I don't how many reports I had of people who were they got in their car and they drove 10 hours to like Vermont to go see it, and they had little kids,
Yeah.
which was
And the
already
traffic was awful.
yeah,
Like all these little rural places all over America.
right. That was
You
part of the
couldn't
thing.
do.
You're right, and then you're driving with little kids, and then you're stuck on the road for hours. Is like
Yeah.
added stress to the whole thing. But it is something that
For something that was like what, 8 minutes,
well,
8
I think
minutes,
it goes 4 minutes max or
four
something like
minutes
that.
max.
Yeah,
But even like the totality places was a little longer now.
it might have been a little bit longer there. Yeah,
But I mean, it wasn't long. It was less than 10.
yeah. We have friends of ours that my wife actually she contacted her a friend on Sunday, I guess it was, because she thought, oh, would you like some extra food? She was going to make kind of she was making we were feeding some people, and she was going to make she said I'll make the vegetarian version of this a little bit and do this. And it turned out that she was up in Niagara Falls. She was already up there on business, but she was going to stick around for the eclipse.
Oh, well.
And like, why not? I mean, if you're already there, you might
Oh,
as well
yeah.
take it in, because I think they got a pretty good view of that up there as
Yeah.
well. And the weather for the most part cooperated, as far as I
Yeah.
understand, is that people didn't get things obscured by clouds.
Right.
The weather turned out okay. Mother Nature cooperated, and people got their thrills. But as I said, it was seeing all these pictures of people wearing their glasses looking up. I just kept thinking, it's like, wasn't there like a sci-fi movie of people wearing glasses doing something like that or whatever?
Yeah.
I don't remember. I don't know. I'm not so into sci-fi stuff that I know every little thing, but it just had this whole sci-fi-esque, kind of look to it, where you just have all these people that put on these glasses to look up and do this. But it's neat. It's something that doesn't happen very often. And if you're into that, that's a wonderful thing. So that led to
Yeah.
some comments that we had by some esteemed people. Sheila Jackson Lee, talking about the moon being made up mostly of gases and everything like this, for which she has tried to now explain that she's blamed right-wing conservatives when she says, I meant the sun and not the moon.
We do. We know. Of course.
Yeah, right.
Yale undergrad, UVA law school. She didn't do it. She didn't take the easy way.
Yeah, and then the View Sunny Hostin talking about that
It's caused by global warming.
yeah, the eclipse, cicadas, some other things. She threw a bunch of things into there, and that was climate change. This is all a result of climate change.
You're in trouble when you got Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar trying to correct you.
Yeah, so
yeah, that's right.
Climate
change caused the eclipse.
Yeah, it's like, look, when you don't know anything about science or anything else, just shut up.
Yeah. Just say the eclipse is cool. It's not an unintelligent answer. It is cool.
Yeah.
It doesn't show that you don't know anything about what you're talking about. But the problem is like, the disinformation on the left is incredible. Like I've been to this thing this week, like these people are talking about whether Biden molested his daughter, right? I mean, there's, they found her diary. It's in the diary. It's pretty clearly spelled out what he did and how he did it. And, it's not in graphic detail, but it's like, there's the thing about the showers and all this stuff. And people are like, that's untrue. It's been totally debunked. James O'Keefe lied about it. It's like, no, James O'Keefe, somebody gave it to him, right? And then he called the FBI because he thought he was being set up. So I've got this thing you're going to want, right? Which I don't blame him for doing. But it's not about James O'Keefe, but it's just like the left has been programmed to say this is not true, right? They don't care about the evidence. They don't care about what she said, what the diary says, what has been proven, what is coming out in court. These people are going to jail, right? Because for stealing or trying to sell it, right? I guess they actually found it, but people are going to jail over this, right? And they're going to jail because, the government determined that they broke the law by having Ashley Biden's diary. Oh, it's not her diary. Well, yeah, it is, right? And it had not only a diary, but it had like a thumb drive or something in there that had family photos, right? They were not family photos of the McNichols. They were family photos of the Bidens, right? And so, I mean, it's obviously hers, and it's obviously what she wrote. And, she's been in and out of, drug, alcohol, and sex addiction clinics her entire adult life, which is consistent with people who were sexually abused as kids, right? And, it's not always, it's not 100% match, but it's pretty close match. And it's just, the nature of the attacks of like, you're telling me something that I am programmed to think is untrue. And it's like, I cannot even deal with the information. It's been really interesting to watch the anger and the vitriol and, of like, I'm learning a thing I don't like to learn.
Yeah, I mean, conservatives. There's some right wing kooks that say a bunch of crazy things, as well out there, and it sticks with a certain part of the population. But I think that the level on the left, because they get so much attention in the media, right? I mean, I don't know how many people still watch The View anymore, but you get this kooky, not unscientific statement from Sunny Hostin talking about cicadas and the eclipse being called as a result being caused for global warming. And you're like, something. The problem with this is that there are going to be people who actually believe this. That the next time they see a cicada, like, we have cicadas because of climate change. It's like, actually, we've had cicadas for a long, long time, and there's a whole pattern and everything behind this. It's like, if you've ever been paying attention to this, eclipses, talk to the science people. They know when these are coming, and that this has been going on for a long time, and they will tell you when the next one is, and it is 2026 when the path is expected to hit over Spain and whatnot. That is not a climate change event.
Right. They can predict in decades in advance.
Yeah, they already know when this stuff is coming. It's like, yeah, I know. No, it's unbelievable, this kind of stuff. It's really too bad that we do have all of this, but it has just increased.
If you look at research on this, people on the right know. Yeah, that's right. I should remember that more often. People on the right know far more about the entire political scene than people on the left. Right? Political, economics, whatever, all those subjects, public affairs topics. That they poll after poll, they research this question in different ways, fairly regularly, and the right is far more informed than the left because, for one thing, it's pretty easy to be a leftist and to avoid our media, conservative media. Right? Never spend 1 second looking at conservative media, but it's almost impossible to be us and avoid leftist media, right? It's just, you can't get away from the, if you live around here, for instance, you can't get away from the Washington Post, right? They're going to have something to say about whatever the story is and however it's perceived in this area, right? Because they're the behemoth, and you can't avoid their news. I take the Washington Post, right? I read it every day. So so I'm every day I'm exposed to what the other side says, but the other side is never exposed to what I'm saying.
Right. And that's one of the things I've always said and thought for a long, long time, in terms of conservatism, liberals, and left. It's just that we are much better informed, much better educated on a lot of the issues, because most of us are actually willing to read all of this material or to watch all of these things. There are a lot of people on the left. They are in their tunnel vision. They're like, they will not spend a minute, reading a conservative publication or watching Fox News or Newsmax or whatever. They won't do it. So then they have one point of view, and that's the only point of view they have. So they're kind of in this echo chamber continually, whereas
cannot handle arguments against their point of view.
Right, and
they're not prepared.
Right. I mean, this is why, like, when the old Crossfire, programs and stuff like that. this is why no matter who the host was, whether or not it was Pat Buchanan or Bob Novak or whatever, they could easily dismantle, the Tom Bradens and others of the world, because they already had so much more information at their fingertips. They were already in there. They already had accumulated all this information because they would read a broader amount of things.
Right.
Even back before the internet, they were still better informed. And they
so
had
now you have this thing where they're trying to make the legacy media the official media, which is another like kind of broad thing they're doing.
Yeah. And so as a result, I mean, you just have this you have this kind of long-standing thing for our side. It's just, I mean, if you really got into a debate, right versus left, if there was a current crossfire type of program going on today, you would see, whoever the conservative was, and you could throw up virtually any, conservative who's actually, who we know has done some a decent amount of reading, and throw them up against any liberal, and they can probably take them apart very easily. And do that. And I mean, I think that even goes, part of it to the whole Ronna McDaniel thing, which we'd already discussed before. But, you have Ronna McDaniel, who, NBC hired. She would have dismantled those left-wing pundits and other anchors on NBC or MSNBC had she been given the chance. She's not Michael Steele. She's not Steve Schmidt. She's not these mealy-mouthed, Republicans, R's and name only. She actually, despite the fact that a lot of people didn't like her, she would have stood up for Republican conservative principles, I think. And that was the bigger fear for the Rachel Maddows and others at MSNBC and whatnot, is because she was actually going to say things that would defend a position and would have been informed, and they would have had a hard time fighting back. Because, to me, Michael Steele and Steve Schmidt and anybody, look what happened to Nicole Wallace. They've all rolled over and played dead,
Right. Giving away all their integrity to.
Yeah, they did. They sold their soul. I mean, that's it. It's like, don't, Nicole Wallace probably would never walk into a room full of Republicans anymore. But, Michael Steele might try to, but, I don't know of anybody in the state of Maryland, for example, that even wants to think about the name Michael Steele for anything that his name pops up. I think it's mud with everybody. Right. And that, the less you talk about him, the better, and everything like that.
Right. So only to a leftist would Michael Steele have credibility to talk about Republican issues.
Right.
If he says Republicans say or think, I'm like, how do you know? You're not among them.
Right. Yeah, I mean, what's the woman's name on CNN? Is it Anna Cabrera or something like that? Isn't she a Republican? But she's she's fully full on left wing stuff on CNN, and CNN has. I mean, there's also S.E. Cupp, who I know, and she was always a little bit more libertarian.
Yeah.
But there isn't anything that says that she would support a conservative principle today. Versus where she was, say, 10 years ago, and they found a niche, and they basically said, okay, well, if there are sellouts, we could list a lot of sellouts.
Yeah, we'll stop here and make money.
Yeah, well,
okay, that's
it's.
But here's the thing about this. So it's the same as like the immigration bill, right? They work out this immigration bill in the Senate. They have James Lankford, who's not MAGA, right? He's a Republican, but he's not MAGA, working it out with Mitch McConnell, Chuck Schumer. Okay. So, so they never asked MAGA what MAGA thought of that bill or what MAGA thought should be in that bill. MAGA is now half the country, right? I mean, both Trump is more or less 50% in the polls, Biden's not far behind, but, Trump controls half the country. Now, the Trump movement, not the Republican Party, but the Trump movement. So when you say, okay, we're going to try to ram through legislation by finding people we can refer to as Republicans, right? And so, which allows us to call things bipartisan, right? But it's not bipartisan because the other partisan is not James Lankford. It is the Trump coalition, right? It is. But their thing is, we're not going to allow those people to have any legitimacy. We're not going to work with them. We're not going to appear on TV with them. We're not going to treat them as colleagues or with any respect or, even as, worthy adversaries on the other side, right? we're going to continue to treat all of MAGA as an illegitimate, insurrectionist political movement. And it is, MAGA has reached a critical mass to where you cannot do that anymore. And they have not adjusted. They're still trying to do a cram down like MAGA doesn't exist or does not deserve or should not be taken seriously.
Yeah, I mean, didn't another thing about Biden, this press conference thing, didn't he, when he was asked this question, I mean, about immigration, did he say he was going to have to go check to see if he had authority to shut down the border or something like that?
Right. Like, that's Trump should put that in his camp. I'm sure Trump will put that in a campaign ad promptly, right? And say, well, I at least know how to shut down the border. This cat, he's asking his friends to look it up for him.
I'm the president. I'm not really sure what I can do.
Yeah. I mean, just the ineptitude. I mean, what did you do to screw it up, Joe? Just undo that. Step one, make them remain in Mexico. How hard is this, Joe?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Look, let's talk just really quickly about got maybe a minute or less here to do this. Just about the Trump's hush money trial is going to start as scheduled, I guess, on April 15th. I don't know. Do you expect much to come out of this? I know Trump's lawyers are continuing to try to find a way to push that off because he's effectively the nominee for the Republican Party, so he's really campaigning. Now he's going to have this thing that'll he's going to have to deal with. Thoughts, real quick thoughts.
Well, there's shaky legal ground. I think his lawyer, judge is pretty clearly against him. What'll probably happen is Trump will be convicted and he'll win on appeal. But the time it takes to get the appeal done will be, will lag deep into election season.
All right. Rather than try to hit another issue here this late in the game, why don't we wrap this up, close it off here?
Let's see, what else have we not covered? I'm looking on our wonderful list. I thought Trump was pitch perfect on abortion. That's the exact right thing that conservatives need to be saying. It's like remand to the states. You want to win the abortion issue, go win hearts and minds at the state level. I think the NPR thing, the editor coming out with a piece saying it lacks viewpoint diversity. NPR, taxpayer supported NPR, is all leftist and won't recognize any other view as legitimate. Is earth-shaking development in the people who care about that issue, because I think it's impossible now for NPR to not address it. For the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
Yeah, and I'll throw in quickly my 2 cents too on this. I know that Mike Pence criticized Trump for his abortion stance, but I really thought, I understand what Pence is saying about about the pro-life movement and everything like this. On the other hand, I thought what Trump said is exactly what we have been fighting for, right? Is that are we not states' rights? Is that these issues, what we talked about, that issues like this should be back to the states, that we don't want the federal government meddling with our lives, and the voters in the states should leave it for them to decide.
Work that out, win hearts and minds at that level.
Right.
That's what you made the point there. That's what we promised to do. We did not promise to end abortion in every state. We promised to end Roe, and we should keep our promise. And Mr. Pence is incorrect on that.
Yeah, so I mean, I think there'll be somewhat of a divide in a sense, but I think Trump actually came out right on this, which maybe before he said it, I was a little bit nervous of what he's going to say, but I'm okay now with it. So
driving the left crazy too. They do not know what to do about this.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed it. Please, as always, stay safe and stay well. Remember, we live in the greatest country in the world. Do not let anybody tell you otherwise. And as always, God bless America. And also, don't cry too much when you have to pay your taxes on Monday. All right, we'll see you again next week.